When I left teaching to transition into data analytics, I realized something shocking. The skills I developed over 14 years in the classroom were worth significantly more in the corporate world than they ever were in education. Companies were willing to pay more, value my contributions more, and gave me more autonomy, all for using the exact same skills I was using as a teacher. And just know that this isn't exaggeration. This isn't survivorship bias. It's a systemic under-evaluation of teaching skills in the education world. Today, I want to walk you through 5 skills that teachers have that companies actually want. I will also share some tips on how to highlight these skills in an interview. So if you're a teacher considering transition to another career, then this video is for you. If you're in corporate and have worked with teachers, this will explain why they perform above expectations. Hello, I'm Keith Kaitor. I have 14 years of teaching experience and have recently transitioned into data analytics. When I was transitioning, I thought that I would be starting from zero because I have zero experience in corporate and I have zero knowledge in business world. But here's what happened. I walked into my first corporate role and immediately recognized that the core skills were almost identical. The terminology were different, the contexts were different, but the skills, they were practically the same. My managers were shocked at how quickly I picked things up. My colleagues seemed surprised at my communication skills. My leadership loved how I handled ambiguous situations and managed competing priorities. And that's when it clicked. Teaching trains you in these skills at a level that most corporate jobs never require. So today I'm breaking down what those skills are, why they're valuable, and how to translate them into corporate language so that you can get hired and paid what you're worth. The first skill is communication and the ability to explain complex ideas. Teaching forces you to develop these skills whether you like it or not. Imagine this, you have 30 to 40 students that have different learning styles, backgrounds, and prior knowledge. And your job is to take something you understand deeply and communicate that to all the students and make sure that they understand the lesson. And you do this every day, every hour, every teaching moment of your life. You learn to strip ideas into their components, identify where people typically get confused, use analogies and examples to bridge gaps, adjust your explanations based on confused faces, deliver the same concepts 5 different times until it lands. In the corporate world, especially in data analytics, we do this a lot. Companies desperately need people that can explain complex ideas clearly. It's literally why technical writers, instructional designers, and project managers exist. The problem? Most corporate people never develop these skills. They usually go into deep jargons and hoping people would understand. And teachers can't get away with that. We learned fast that clarity is non-negotiable. So how does this skill translate to the corporate world? You can use this skill in training and development roles, technical writing, project management, consulting, leadership positions, and any role requiring presenting to non-technical audiences. So how do you talk about this in an interview? So instead of saying I explained concepts to students, say I translated complex material for diverse audiences with different knowledge levels, identified knowledge gaps, and adjusted communication strategy in real time. That's pretty much the same skill with different vocabulary. The second skill is classroom management, but we are going to reframe that because classroom management sounds like you're controlling kids. What I'm talking about is your ability to manage competing priorities simultaneously, handle disruptions, adapt on the fly, and keep things moving forward despite chaos. So think about a single day in the classroom. You learn to make real-time decisions given incomplete information. In corporate, this is called crisis management, or problem solving under pressure, or adaptability. This translates to project management, operations roles, event management, HR or people management, customer success roles, any leadership position, or crisis management roles. In my data analytics transition, this skill translated directly. When projects went sideways, or when priorities change, or a stakeholder has something to add, I don't feel stressed. Hell, I'd manage 150 students with different competing needs for 14 years. So how do we talk about this in an interview? Instead of saying I manage classroom disruptions, you say, I manage complex situations with multiple competing priorities while maintaining productivity. I implemented real-time solutions to unexpected problems and kept teams or projects on track despite disruptions. Teachers are extraordinary problem solvers. We just don't talk about it that way. Third skill is emotional intelligence, or the ability to read people, understand their emotional state, and respond appropriately. Teachers develop this naturally because we have to. Our job is partly about content delivery and mostly about managing human beings at different emotional states. As a teacher, you learn to notice when someone is struggling, not just academically, but emotionally. Recognize different personality types and adjust your approach. You learn to manage your own emotion, or being patient with a 30th student asking the same question. Navigate conflict constructively, build trust and psychological safety, and recognize when someone is anxious, bored, disengaged, or overwhelmed. When you teach long enough, you become exceptionally good at reading people. In the corporate world, emotional intelligence is one of the most valuable soft skills. Research shows that leaders with high emotional intelligence have better team retention, higher engagement, and better overall performance. And this skill translates to leadership positions, human resources, customer success and client management, sales, team building roles, conflict resolution, or any role requiring stakeholder management. So why do companies value this? Most corporate employees come from a technical background. They're analytically strong, but oftentimes emotionally tone deaf. A teacher, on the other hand, walks in and immediately reads the room. They understand team dynamics and knows how to communicate in a way that resonates emotionally. So how do we talk about this in an interview? Instead of saying I have a good rapport with students, say I developed strong interpersonal skills and the ability to read group dynamics. I built psychological safety and trust within teams, which increase engagement and productivity. I recognized individual needs and tailored my approach accordingly. Teachers are natural coaches, and I think that's one of our superpower. The fourth skill is the ability to learn things quickly and adjust to new environments. Teachers have to do this constantly, and we're forced to be good at it. Teaching across 3 different countries showed me how extreme this can be. In the Philippines, I was teaching with minimal resources. I had to improvise, be creative, and work with what I have. In Saudi Arabia, I was teaching in a highly controlled environment and I had to learn a completely new system. In the United States, I have resources, but extremely different expectations. And again, it's the same thing. I have to learn a new system. Within each country, I probably adapted my teaching styles 50 plus times. Teachers learn to embrace change because we literally have no choice. Curriculum changes, student changes, technology changes, expectation changes. We have to keep learning or we become obsolete. This is called learning agility in the corporate world, and it's highly valued in a fast-moving environment. So what does this skill translate to? This skill is important to tech companies, which requires constant change, startups, consulting, management roles, any role requiring quick skill acquisition, and roles in rapidly growing companies. In my transition to data analytics, I had to learn new skills on top of learning corporate culture. So how did I talk about this in the interview? Instead of saying I taught in different countries in my case, I said, I've successfully adapted to multiple new environments and learned complex new systems quickly. I embrace change and see challenges as learning opportunities. I can move from one context to another and maintain high performance. Teachers are adaptability machines. Just frame it that way. The fifth skill, and this one surprised me the most, is data analytics and pattern recognition. Teachers are constant observers and analyzers. We're collecting data on students all the time. We just didn't call it that. We're constantly gathering information, analyzing patterns, and make decisions based on the data that you collected. When I transitioned to data analytics, I noticed and I realized that this is basically the exact same skill, just with different data and tools. In teaching, the data was qualitative and observational. In data analytics, the data was quantitative and digital, but the fundamental process was identical. So what does this skill translate to? You could apply to data analytics job. Then we have business intelligence, user research, quality assurance, operations analysis, product management, or any role involving metrics and measurements. So how do we talk about this in an interview? Instead of saying I track student performance, say I collected and analyzed data from multiple sources to identify patterns and trends. I made evidence-based decisions and measured outcomes. I recognized when results didn't match expectations and investigated root causes. This skill is increasingly valuable as companies become data-driven. So let me show you how this works in practice. When I transitioned into data analytics, my resume looks like this. 14 years teaching experience, taught students in 3 countries, managed classrooms of 40 plus students, created curriculum and lesson plans, assessed student performance. And I realized employers look at this and they were like, this is not what we're looking for. And it's not relevant to analytics. And that's when I realized that I had to reframe these skills. And so I rewrote my resume, and at the time it looked like this. I analyzed student performance data from 1,000 plus students across multiple years, identified learning patterns and correlated student behaviors with academic outcomes, made data-driven recommendations, and measured the impact of interventions. As you can see, they are same experience but different language. And suddenly, employers saw the relevance. I wasn't just a teacher anymore. I was becoming a data analyst. And I want you to understand that you are not lying. You're just reframing the skills that you already have as a teacher. You're using corporate vocabulary so that you can get noticed and get hired. But here's what matters. Most teacher doesn't realize how valuable they are. Teachers tend to opt out of corporate opportunities because they think they are not qualified. I want you to realize that you are qualified. You just need to translate your skills into a language that resonates with the industry. I walked into my first data analyst role and thinking I was behind, but I realized I wasn't. I already know how to break down complex ideas into small, digestible sizes. I understand people, I could learn skills quickly, and I could recognize patterns. Those are literally the skills that make people successful in the corporate world. My current salary is about 3 times what I would have been earning had I stayed in teaching. And that is on my first role as a data analyst. And within 2 years, I doubled my income. And not because I suddenly became smarter, but because the same skill that I had in teaching were 50% more valuable in the corporate world. One last thing, if you're considering a career transition, here's exactly how to use this information. First, you map your teaching skills to the role. What does the job description ask for? Where do your teaching skills overlap? Can you find examples from teaching that demonstrate those skills? Step 2 is to translate using corporate vocabulary, like what I showed you earlier. Step 3 is to use specific examples. Give concrete examples on how you use the skill. Explain the outcome and connect it to how it's relevant to the corporate world. And lastly, this is, I think, one of the most important things that you have to remember is to lead with translation and not apology. Don't apologize for not having corporate experience. Instead, highlight the specific skills that transfer. Here's an example. While my background is in education, I've developed strong skills in XYZ or whatever skills that you want to mention that are directly applicable to this role. So again, if you're a teacher considering leaving, I want you to leave with this. You're not starting from zero. You have these 5 amazing skills: communication, problem solving, emotional intelligence, adaptability, and analytical thinking. These are skills that took you years to develop, and companies are actually actively looking for it. The only thing you need is translation. You need to stop thinking of teaching as a separate career path and think of it as a professional training, because that's what it is. It's intense, it's demanding, and it develops exactly the skills that the corporate world values. The fact that education doesn't pay you what you're worth is not a reflection of your value. Take your skills, translate them, and position yourself in an environment that compensates you for what you bring. You're probably overqualified. You just didn't know it. And that's it for this video, guys, and I hope you learned something. Hit the like button because that's helped the channel, and subscribe for more videos on teaching and psychology and starting over. This is Keith, and I'll see you in the next one.